goes on in quiet corners of our countryside. Dogs and wild animals fighting to the death.
It's upsetting, the fact they want to watch setting one animal one another to the point that an animal will get killed.
Tonight's Spotlight investigates this hidden blood sport.
It's anything from 3,500 cases to 14,000 cases in any given year.
These are classic badger injuries.
Classic badger injuries. And both of those dogs needed immediate veterinary care.
And we tracked down a hunter with questions to answer. It's Connor Spackman from BBC Spotlight.
What do you want?
As autumn arrives, the countryside becomes a playing field for a brutal pastime. It's called baiting. That's the deliberate setting up of fights between hunting dogs and wild animals like foxes and badgers. In Northern Ireland, there's a hardcore group of people at its heart, according to the Ulster Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals.
The information that we've gathered would show that across Northern Ireland there are over 150 people engaged in this activity. The vast majority of them, in fact, 99% of them are attacking both foxes and badgers. The scale of it is really quite frightening.
Get on him, boy. Get on him.
When not baiting foxes and badgers across the countryside, many of these hunters spend much of their time in shadowy online groups, showing off bloody dogs, dead and dying prey, while often hiding their own identity.
From their social media posts, you can see that they're very open in sharing their exploits and championing their kills. They will refer directly to foxes, but they will use slang or code language when they're referring to badgers.
That's because baiting badgers, an animal protected by law, is illegal. It's also against the law to attack the badger's home, a set. But foxes are not protected. What about the geographical hotspots?
It's across the whole of Northern Ireland. But the two main counties would be Antrim and Down. There is the aspect of population density. There's also the aspect of badger population density as well in those two particular counties.
We have obtained two videos from a fox baiting incident which took place in Northern Ireland and were posted online in 2016. There was an accusation that these images displayed cruelty, but a court found what happened was within the law. In one, a hunting dog and a fox are locked in combat in a hole as an attempt is made to dig them out. Then in another, after being dug out, the dog and the fox remain locked together.
You can.
So I just wanted to show you a few things here to get your expert opinion on it. Vet David Martin has worked as an expert witness on animal welfare cases for 20 years.
It certainly constitutes unnecessary suffering to the dog. In my view, in veterinary terms, a member of the public watching that will react instinctively and may well instinctively believe that that is just plain cruel. The law has to work within the facts and whether or not it meets the legal test and the legal threshold.
As the law stands in Northern Ireland, hunting foxes is lawful, whereas baiting of badgers, a protected species, is not. And to animal welfare groups, that's a problem. Unless they're caught in the act, anyone suspected of involvement in badger baiting can simply say they were targeting foxes.
While fox hunting is legal, the chances of a badger baiting conviction are undermined because the defence, the cloak of, well, I was just out hunting foxes, whereas in fact it was badgers that they were hunting.
This loophole doesn't exist in the rest of the UK, where there's a blanket ban on hunting with dogs. Peter Clark founded the Northern Ireland Badger Group, a voluntary organisation which works to protect badgers. I met him near an active badger set, where he explained why he got involved.
One day, about 30 odd years ago, I came across a set that had been attacked, and there was a dead fox and a dead badger, and they were both totally mangled. I was just sickened. I couldn't actually believe what I was witnessing.
The set expands far beyond its entrance into a relatively vast subterranean palace.
We're standing on top of the set. As you can see, it's quite huge. They have a series of tunnels and chambers. The badgers will sleep in the chambers, and there'll be breeding chambers. It's a huge network underneath the field there.
And you're saying this set might have been here for as long as 100 years?
Just looking at the evidence, it looks as though it's been here for a very, very long time.
We get a great sense of what's underground here from these pictures captured at night while badgers are active. The CCTV cameras were installed after an attack on the set last year.
There you can see where they've dug into the set. It's sort of nearly filled in now, but that's obviously the back of a chamber.
Yeah.
So that's how far back it goes. On down here you can see as well, Connor.
They've dug in quite deeply there, haven't
Yeah.
they? Maybe you could explain, Peter, then, for people who maybe don't understand what badger baiting actually is.
Right, so they'll come over to where the set on down here.
Yeah.
They'll check all the entrances and check for one that's really active. Then they put their dog in with a locator collar on it.
Right.
So it'll go in through the tunnels looking for the badgers.
Right.
So when it comes across the badger, it'll stay there.
Yeah.
And then they go above with this locator, which bleeps.
Right.
So as soon as that bleeps, when it stays still, they'll just dig directly down.
And what happens then?
So they'll try to extract the smaller dog and try to pull out the badger with other larger dogs. That's the digging part of it. And then the baiting is when they set like bull lurchers on it. Sometimes they don't kill it. They just let the dogs fight with it a long period and then let it go back into the set when it's badly injured. They would come back time and time again and set their dogs on the same badger.
Those who attacked this set last year have not been found, but on rare occasions, people involved in baiting have faced the courts. Spotlight has obtained this video. It was recorded by a County Armagh farmer who came across two men who appeared to be digging at a badger set on his land.
You can go down hiding now, but they're digging up badgers. Illegal. In the 40s, they're running out of the company. Yep, he went down with the car. Reckon that's right. I reckon.
One of the men was identified as Paul Reevy from Lisnaree Road in Rathfryland. In May 2021, he was convicted at Newry Magistrates Court of animal cruelty. Not for attacking the set, but for causing these injuries to the terrier dog he left behind when he made his undignified exit.
Badger baiting is undoubtedly cruel to the badger, but in physical pain terms, it comes down to who wins or who ends up getting injured, and often both do. Both the dog and the badger end up with significant injuries, so it is cruel to both.
Paul Reevy, pictured here after his conviction, was sentenced to 4 months in prison and banned from keeping animals for 10 years. The prison sentence was suspended after he appealed, arguing that he was a foster carer of children.
Not hiding now, but
Brendan Mullen says his organisation was disappointed that Paul Reevy was not also prosecuted for offences related to badgers and the set.
They were seen leaving the set. The dog was in a badger set, and there was evidence to show that the badger set was active. I can't think what more evidence could have been.
The Public Prosecution Service said it had decided to prosecute Paul Reevy for interfering with the set, but later accepted his guilty plea for an animal cruelty charge that carried a longer sentence. As well as installing cameras to protect badger sets, the USPCA has an investigations unit which monitors animal baiters. Last month, we joined that unit as it carried out surveillance on a group suspected of being involved in baiting in County Down. They made several stops that afternoon. Filmed here with 2 dogs in tow. But as it looked like they were heading home to Belfast, they made one last unlikely stop. This is an incredible development, believe it or not. We're here in Roselawn Cemetery. They're parked up on one of the ring roads that go right round the cemetery. They're out going off into the wood near to where we are at the moment. One of the USPCA surveillance operatives outlined what happened next. He's not appearing on camera to protect his cover.
We saw 4 guys in the field, and as we moved in closer, we could hear noise. And then as we got closer again, and the noise actually was squealing and almost as an animal in pain, and dogs barking. The squealing was going on for maybe a minute or so. There's a high-pitched squeal, and then we moved in closer, and we actually at that stage saw another man over at the hedge line filling in a hole.
Just outside the cemetery, the USPCA surveillance team then filmed the group of men as they posed for photographs with their dogs. So what was going on? If the animal squealing was a fox, this could have been lawful fox hunting. Last year, an Alliance MLA put forward legislation which would have made baiting of foxes illegal. It was a private member's bill to ban all hunting with dogs in line with the rest of the UK. There were 18,000 responses to the public consultation, a significant majority in support. But the bill was defeated amid passionate debate.
I received correspondence, as I'm sure others have, describing this activity as traditional, social, harmless. My goodness, it is not harmless, and it can only be described as harmless in a world where animal welfare is disregarded.
Every dog owner in Northern Ireland could become a potential criminal. A criminal for simply letting their dogs do what dogs do. In other words, members, this bill attempts to legislate against a dog's most basic and natural instinct, that being to scent and to hunt.
That view is shared by pro-hunting groups like the Countryside Alliance. It told Spotlight deliberate cruelty was completely unacceptable, but it called the bill an unjustified attack on the rural community, which would inhibit control of animals they see as pests, like foxes. Brendan Mullen believes Stormont's failure to pass a hunting ban was a missed opportunity.
It would have stopped the cruelty that we've witnessed in those pictures and videos in relation to fox hunting in Northern Ireland, and it would have strengthened the arms of the enforcement agencies in tackling the crime of badger baiting, which is already illegal, because it removes the cloak of respectability that they're out hunting foxes.
Our investigation into hunting with dogs led us towards a network of hunters from across the UK. They gather on social media, often in secretive closed groups, boasting of their dog's prowess, posting videos and photos of their spoils. This group, we begin to see people pictured with shovels or spades. And if you scroll down, then you start to see people halfway into the holes themselves. That's how big the holes are. You can actually hear the locator collar beeping to help the hunter find the dog. Here's another video where a dog has pretty clearly been badly injured. Martin Sims is head of investigations with the League Against Cruel Sports.
It's upsetting. It's offending that people can call that their pastime. The fact they want to watch and take great delight in setting one animal on another to the point that an animal will get killed in the most horrific circumstances.
The USPCA's footage of the men in the field beside Roselawn Cemetery appears to display some of the characteristics of animal baiting we see in the shadowy online groups. The types of dogs, believed to be a black Patterdale Terrier and 2 Golden Wheaton Terriers, often used in baiting. Posing with the dogs for photographs. Their spades, potentially useful for digging out animals. The black dog is wearing what looks like the locator collars, known to be used by baiters. After the men left the field, the surveillance operative moved in.
We found the hole that had been filled in very quickly by the one chap with the spade digging it in. We then went into the hedge end itself, and there was 2 entry points where you had fresh straw and fresh scrapings of where a badger would have been digging in a hole.
Remember, disturbing an active badger set is a criminal offence. But was this set active? The USPCA installed a camera for signs of overnight badger activity. 5 days after the men were in the field, this confirmation that badgers use the set. As well as his role with the League Against Cruel Sports, Martin Sims is a former police officer who headed up the National Wildlife Crime Unit. He believes the footage raises an uncomfortable question.
Why would you be walking around the countryside with a group of spades and a group of dogs of that sort of size? For me personally, with those images, with what the eyewitness had given, I'd be looking to get a warrant and seize phones, because we've actually seen evidence of them taking images.
It's a view echoed by the USPCA.
It would be our interpretation that there is sufficient evidence there that would justify a police investigation.
One of the men in the field was this man, Neil Pinkerton. We wrote to him and 2 of the others we identified to ask them what they were doing there. They did not respond. While animal baiting usually takes place in the countryside, many of those involved live in towns and cities. Neil Pinkerton, a man with a significant social media presence, is from East Belfast. His passion is dogs, in particular dogs like these, hunting dogs. He's known to keep up to 12 dogs at his small terraced house at one time. He puts them through rigorous training. They win prizes at dog shows. But Neil Pinkerton's big passion is going hunting with them. As we can see in this photograph, in in which he proudly holds up a fox attacked by one of his dogs. In 2020, the UK-wide charity League Against Cruel Sports received an anonymous tip-off.
So there was a call brought into the league on our Animal Crime Watch hotline, and it was an anonymous call saying that there's a Facebook site of Northern Ireland called Harry John Digging. If you have a look, you'll find stuff there that's of interest.
What we see here are photographs that Facebook have identified as sensitive content. When we click on those, we see pictures of dogs, sometimes with foxes, sometimes the dogs on their own, and clearly both the dog and the fox are very, very seriously injured.
It suggests that there is animal baiting going on. All the blood and the fact that there's soil all over their face tends to suggest they are animal baiting.
Harry John Digging's profile picture at one stage featured this badly injured dog. A closer look at the profile revealed familiar dogs. Then another profile picture confirmed suspicions of who was behind Harry John Digging. None other than Neil Pinkerton. The League Against Cruel Sports wasn't the only organisation keeping an eye on Neil Pinkerton. The police were too. He was prosecuted in relation to animal cruelty offences in 2018, but the judge, having considered the weight of the evidence, instructed the jury to acquit him. Then in 2021, the police conducted a stop and search operation on him as he went to a dog show in England. He live streamed this footage.
First time, no dogs. What's it today? It's drugs and money. Drugs and money. Unbelievable, troops. But sure, it's a doggy game for you.
Nothing was found during the stop and search. But brushes with the law have not deterred Neil Pinkerton hunting and prolifically posting about his exploits on his Harry John Digging profile. Our investigation has uncovered evidence from that profile which raises questions about exactly what sort of activities Neil Pinkerton may be involved in. People who seem to be involved in hunting very often use kind of code language to describe their activities or to describe the prey that they're after. So we understand, for example, that people who are involved in hunting badgers will often refer to badgers online as pigs, obviously to disguise the fact that it's badgers they're after. Here, from his own Facebook profile, Neil Pinkerton refers to digging up a pig, described as code for a badger.
It's typically called a pig or a black and white, and obviously with the head of the badger being black and white stripes, that's the link there. They will also reference it to humbugs, again the sweet black and white. Think of Newcastle and references to Newcastle as a reference, or to Geordies.
In an exchange on a private Facebook group which we have obtained, Neil Pinkerton, aka Harry John Digging, seems to be asked if his dog Storm had been fighting with a Newcastle fan, code for a badger, because of the football team's black and white striped strip. Harry John Digging responds,
"We all were that weekend, black, whites, all the way."
The other person then says,
"Them fucking Geordies, give 'em fuckers."
Geordie's a nickname for people from Newcastle and another code name for badgers, to which Harry John Digging smiles and says,
"Damn sure they are, LOL."
In another post talking about Storm, Harry John Digging says,
"Great working dog, drawed both fox and smelly."
We're told smelly is also code, again for a badger. And there's more. We obtained these photographs of Storm and another dog, which were posted on the Harry John Digging page. We showed them to veterinary expert David Martin. He said the injuries to their jaws are very distinctive.
This is a significant loss of tissue to the lower jaw here. Basically, the chin has been removed. The dog's clearly being used underground because it's wearing a locator collar. Something has effectively bitten off the chin of that dog. The black-coloured terrier, again, there's an injury there that's happened to the lower jaw. It's clearly been engaged in a fight at some point and sustained a really significant injury. Most likely, by very, very far strongest opinion, is that those are related to fighting with badgers. Badgers will tend to crouch down very low on the floor and try and get up underneath the dog and rear back up under it, and that's why they grab hold of the lower chin.
These are classic badger injuries.
Classic badger injuries. And both of those dogs needed immediate veterinary care at the time those injuries were sustained.
We wrote to Neil Pinkerton with a series of questions about issues raised in this programme. He did not reply. So we phoned to try to get a response to our questions. Hello, Neil.
Yeah, who's calling?
It's Connor Spackman from BBC Spotlight, Mr. Pinkerton. I'm recording this call.
And you're who?
Connor Spackman from BBC Spotlight. I'm recording this call. Mr. Pinkerton. Sorry?
What do you want?
I'm calling Mr. Pinkerton to ask you about photographs we've obtained, which you put online, which show dogs belonging to you with badger injuries. Did you take those dogs badger baiting, Mr. Pinkerton? He's hung up. We've written to Mr. Pinkerton twice now. We've also phoned him. We haven't had a proper response. We haven't had any response. No response whatsoever. Those whose work is dedicated to animal welfare want better enforcement of the existing law protecting badgers.
Given the scale of badger baiting in Northern Ireland, from our intelligence, it's anything from 3,500 cases to 14,000 cases in any given year. Given the scale of it, given the animal cruelty involved in it, what we would like to see, even on a time-limited basis, is a special task force set up by the police to proactively investigate this network of over 150 badger baiters in Northern Ireland and to hold them to account in the criminal court, rather than them being held to account by the media in the court of public opinion.
The PSNI said it takes reports of animal-related crime seriously, and it was an important part of policing. It said it has a wildlife and rural crime team, ensuring all police officers and staff can receive the expert support and guidance necessary to respond to reports of wildlife crime. The baiting season is now in full swing. While Stormont is absent, there is no prospect of changing the law on hunting with dogs. That leaves the legal loophole, allowing badger baiters to claim they were targeting foxes. In the meantime, enforcement of the existing law is the only protection for badgers from those whose sport means their suffering.